Welcome to the Coffee Snobs Podcast, where we just really love good coffee.
Grab your cup of coffee and join us each episode as we explore any and everything coffee related.
From pour-overs to lattes to the coffee experience, we explore it all. Because, well, life's too short to drink bad coffee. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Coffee Snobs Podcast. My name is Tyler Dancy and I'm joined by my good friend Aaron Beaver.
Hello, everyone.
It is the holiday season and we are in a festive mood. So as the year winds down, we're kind of reflecting on the first half of the year and the start of the Coffee Snobs Podcast. And today's topic, Aaron has got some cool information. He's going to give you a pour-over recipe for perhaps a sweeter coffee.
I'm going to say more desirable. Let's say that.
Desirable. Maybe less acidic, perhaps?
We'll say more desirable.
Okay.
Because what I'm going to explain in the recipe, you'll be able to create a more desirable cup for you and how you can begin to make the best cup of coffee you've ever had. It's really exciting.
The best. That's really exciting. All right. Well, before we get into today's topic, like always, let's start off. What is new? What's new with you, Aaron?
Well, our coffee machine at work broke.
Uh-oh. That's your espresso machine?
Yeah, it went down.
What happened?
Well, we have water filtration in that is external to the coffee machine, but it supplies the water to the coffee machine. And
so hang on, let's get a starting point. You have an industrial.
That's correct. It would be we'll say entry level commercial grade.
Commercial grade. It's not like they're not pulling shots on Breville all day at their.
No. So we have a Wega. I think it's a Mini Nova.
Okay.
And it has a heat exchanger. Has a boiler, but heat exchanger is the method that it goes by heating up the water. So you have a dual. It would not be considered a dual boiler because it's not, but it's a dual heat exchanger. So the actual steam wand and the head supply off of one heat exchanger, and then the other side, which is the water dispenser, the hot water dispenser, comes off the other heat exchanger.
Okay.
So that being said, our water was like smelling funky. I mean, it smelled like a fish camp. It was weird.
Ooh,
yeah, it really was. So we did our due diligence and cleaned it out, and with the correct cleaning material and solutions that are provided on the webs, and it went away and then came back, and I was like, what the heck? Well, then we started seeing a little leak at the bottom, and that led us down a bad rabbit trail. So currently at this moment, the boiler is being replaced. The boiler has a hairline crack. I think it's just from corrosion. But
you guys use the heck out of it.
Oh my God. I think we totaled up. We did over 12,000 cups of coffee and 260 pounds of beans at Lock Dock.
And that's just you. I mean, since you started there, it was probably like half of that.
Yeah,
but no, in all seriousness, you don't think about it when you go to, like your local coffee shop, but those espresso machines they're using are, they're built with really, really nice components, and they're built to pull tons and tons of espresso shots.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a question before, like, people are looking at a Breville, which is a really good prosumer,
it's good
machine
start
for your home. And people are like, oh, well, maybe I can start a small coffee shop and use. No. Those are built for like maybe pulling a shot or two, during your work week, stuff like that. But once you are producing a large amount of coffee, like especially like you guys, and how many employees do you guys have that are consistently using it? Currently
at this moment, we have 38 employees, but about 4 cups is what we know at least 20 employees are drinking multiple cups a day.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're pulling a lot, and especially like on Wednesday when all of the staff is here. I mean, we'll go through, 5 pounds of coffee, between six and 9 o'clock. By all the
that's a
time.
lot.
But, I mean, it's ridiculous at the amount of coffee that we go through. So
maybe that'd be a good idea for a future episode. We can maybe talk about just some like maintenance, because even for your personal home setup with the pour over carafe, I mean, you need to clean it properly. You need to clean your espresso machine. So maybe that's something that.
Yeah, I think we talked back on a previous episode about water and how important the water is, and
the pH level.
Yeah, well, we showed. I mean, just what we've been going through here at Lock Talk with our machine shows how important getting a very low TDS, which is total dissolved solubles.
That's really
I think
scientific. I don't understand.
But when you put water in a boiling, when you start to boil water, it will start to remove the chemicals, and you'll get like calcium buildup, and you'll get the actual minerals and deposits that are in it will start to show themselves. You won't see it in the water when it's just stagnant, but when it is put under pressure and put under boiling, it will bring those out. And so they will start to do weird things and end up in places, and then you won't have a espresso machine. And
well, hey, if you feel, guys, I have a Keurig at my workplace, and I think there's probably some K-Cups there that are like expired in 2017. So, guys, I'll be happy to drop by my Keurig
Please do.
at Lock Dock for you guys.
Well, we currently have my Gaza Classic Pro in our coffee bar.
Yeah,
and
but
it's
that's
a different,
more like a consumer level, so you don't want to overwork that thing. You might.
It is. I mean, it's a very finicky machine. It's a very finicky machine. And
let me just say, when your espresso machine at your place of employment is down, that's like first world problem. So I don't really feel sorry for you. Hush up.
But this is the coffee. But this is the coffee snobs.
This is true.
Everything we talk about is first world problems.
Well, yeah, we are kind of basic, but actually, we have the nasty Keurig, which obviously no one uses. We have a Starbucks in the hospital. And it's Starbucks. So, if you're like really jonesing for caffeine, or maybe they have hot tea even. So whatever, it could be worse. So just don't feel bad for yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
what about you?
A long-winded in the coffee. What's new? Well, we always try to stay positive here on the Coffee Snobs podcast. And I'm not really trying to bang on anybody. Well, I try to stay positive. I mean, I'm not. Jeez. Yeah. So my wife, this is the holiday season, and they did like a Secret Santa exchange for gifts. She's
going to listen to this.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not ashamed. They wrote down, things that I enjoy, things that, don't buy me, like don't buy candles and lotion and all that junk. And they knew my wife liked coffee. So the person was very thoughtful, and they bought her some coffee. They got her a bag of whole bean, at least it was whole bean, Starbucks 2019 holiday blend coffee. So that, they were trying to be nice. Hey, you like coffee. Here's some Starbucks beans. So, not wanting to waste beans, I ground some up and made some pour overs. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I can drink a lot of stuff black, but I put some in a mug and I was driving to work and it was tough.
Okay, so that's a great segue, Tyler, because maybe for Christmas, Santa brought you a bad bag of beans, something that's not desirable. Let's say that happened.
Like a Coffee Snob subscription.
Well, that's the gift that keeps giving.
Actually,
yeah, that's a really good one. So, but let's say you got a red bag of coffee that is not the most desirable. It's set on the shelf for many, many moons. What I'm going to share with us today, a coffee recipe, will allow you to get what I believe the best tasting cup of coffee you can get from your bean.
So this would also work with a good bean, you're saying, but it really helps when you have a not a very good bean.
Right. When you have a great bean, this is going to give you a great cup of coffee. When you got a mediocre bean, I believe it's going to give you a good cup of coffee.
A drinkable cup.
A drinkable cup. And actually a desirable cup. So this method is in your manual brew process. And the equipment that you're going to need for this would be a Chemex. What's the Target brand? Bodum.
Bodum.
You're going to need a Kalita Wave or a V60.
Yep.
And I think that's it for the pour over, right? And then you're going to need a water kettle.
Something to heat your water.
Yep. And then from a water kettle, you're going to need a scale for this.
Yep.
And
we referenced that on some previous episodes.
Correct.
So if you guys,
if your Secret Santa or significant other does not listen to the podcast, you need to
shame on them.
Send them a Coffee Snob subscription, and you can get
the gift that keeps on getting.
That's right. So those are the pieces of equipment to produce this recipe. So we're going to do a single cup brew recipe. Okay. So you can multiply this for if you've got a Chemex and you want to do multiple cups, or you've got a Bodum and you want to do multiple cups, you can double this recipe or triple it. And there's going to be a little alteration on the time, but just know you can double it and yield more coffee in your cup. Okay.
All right. So this initial recipe, though, just again, is for a single cup of coffee.
Single cup of coffee. So we're going to start with 20 grams of ground coffee. Now, this is going to be coarse ground, and preferably you've just ground it and you're putting it into your manual brew pour over process right now. Okay?
Fresh.
So what we want to do is we want to make sure our coffee filter has been rinsed. We add our coffee, and then we're ready to begin our brew process. Get your kettle to a boiling point, and then 30 seconds off of boil is a pretty good way to do your water. So, let's say you don't have a electric kettle with a readout, just get it to boil, take it off the boil. Once it's boiling, pull it off
212,
boil. Yeah, 212 is boiling. And so let it sit for about 30 seconds, and that should reduce the temperature enough to start your manual brew process. Okay?
Yep.
So,
in worst case scenario, just put that water in the microwave, baby, if you're really ratchet. But okay.
So we're gonna do our best recipe we can with our mediocre beans or our great beans. Okay. So we're going to divide this manual brew process into 5 steps. Okay. So it's 5 individual pours, and each one of those pours is set out by 45 seconds. Okay. So our first pour, we wait 45 seconds. We do another pour. We wait 45 seconds. We do another pour, 45 seconds, all the way through 5 pours, which should take you about 3 minutes and 45 seconds, maybe 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
It's not a super quick process.
No, it's not. But
it's worth it.
But the reason for doing this recipe is in the journey of crafting the best tasting cup of coffee for you. This is you can alter this recipe on by just a little bit and make a smoother cup of coffee. Some would say sweeter. I try not to use that descriptor because there's not sugar in coffee, but some would say sweeter, so we can use sweeter for this.
All right. So hit me with this recipe.
Okay. So if we've got 20 grams of ground coffee in our portafilter, we're going to triple the water that we pour in. So our first pour is going to be, what is it, Tyler? Would that be 60?
So 20 times 3 is 60.
Boom. So our first pour is 60, and we're going to start from the outside, go around the bloom and into the center. So in a swirling, think of like a spiral into the center.
Inward spiral.
And so our scale is set to 0. We start pouring. We hit our timer. We pour 60. We stop. We let it bloom. We let it bubble. If your coffee beans are older, you're probably not going to see as much bubbling. If your coffee beans are freshly roasted, you're probably going to see quite a bit of bubbling.
Yeah, the bubbles are the release of gas, like I believe it's nitrogen. That's the extraction of the flavor from the coffee bean.
Yeah, so a lot of
bubbles
people
are good.
A lot of people call that the blooming process. So that's the first pour. So the first pour is extremely important because that is where you start to really define the flavor or taste of that coffee. So I'm going to give you a basic recipe, and then at the end I'm going to show you how to alter this recipe to produce a better, like a smoother, maybe some would say sweeter cup of coffee. But we're just going to keep this a basic recipe for at this moment. So the first pour is 60
grams. Yep.
We wait 45 seconds. We pour another 60. So the first two pours really kind of help craft the taste or the flavor. And then the last three pours are more of the strength. So they would bring that flavor out a little stronger. So if you've ever had a watered down cup of coffee, those last three
they added
pours.
too much water.
Correct. And so those last three pours are really what will intensify the flavor. It's not going to alter the flavor, but it's going to intensify it or it's going to reduce it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've done your two pours and you waited 45 seconds in between each one.
Correct.
So you're about a minute and a half into this process.
Yep. And so now we're going to continue with our last three pours, and we're going to go another 60, pour in, wait 45 seconds, another 60, pour in, wait 45 seconds, another 60, pour in, and wait for and then we're ready.
So this is one reason that a scale is pretty important in this, because you're not really going to know how much water you're pouring in unless you have a scale that's showing you as you're pouring, or like it sounds like a graduated cylinder. Like you might remember that from chemistry class in high school. You got to have some way to determine how much water you're pouring in each pour, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
So remember when I said at the beginning that you could take mediocre beans and produce a more desirable cup of coffee?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to go into is the first two pours. Okay. So our basic recipe, I hope you wrote this down, but if you haven't, it'll be on the Instagram. It'll be first pour 60, and the next consecutive 4 pours, waiting every 45 seconds, are 60. Okay.
60 milliliters / grams of water.
Yeah. Yep. And so what's going to happen is you're not going to yield 300 grams of coffee. You're going to yield about 240, maybe 260, but I'm going to say 240 milliliters of coffee in your cup. Okay?
Yeah, so some of that water is retained in the coffee grounds, and it's just lost.
It is. Yep.
Okay.
So our first two pours are extremely important. And what we're going to do is, let's say we have very old beans. We're going to take that first pour, and we're going to move some of the water from the first pour and move it to our second pour. Okay? So think of the first two pours as 120 milliliters of water we poured in, right?
Yep.
So if we take 20 milliliters off of the first pour and move it to the second, it would be what, 40 and 80?
40 and 80, yeah. Okay.
So what we're going to do is, if we want a sweeter cup of coffee, we're going to move 20 grams from the first pour to the second. We're still going to keep our 45-second time. So our time doesn't change. It's just the amount of water that we put in. And now the reason for this is, the longer the water sets in the coffee, the more it extracts it. The more it extracts the coffee flavor and taste and caffeine out of the bean.
Okay.
So on that first pour, we're releasing the nitrogen. We're letting the coffee get saturated a little bit. It's opening up. The temperature is bringing out some of the fats and what is it? It's fats and proteins. There we go. The fats and the proteins. And so that's why we use hot water to get that to kind of open up. And so what happens is, when you just pour a little bit of water in, 40 milliliters of water in the first time, you don't get that full extraction, but you start the process. And so what you do is, when you pour that second 80, it will not be as bitter, and the extraction process has already started. So think of it like a clock. As soon as you add water, it starts, the clock starts running. Okay?
Yeah. So this sounds like a slightly delayed extraction, essentially.
Correct. So think of it this way. When we put espresso, we put 20 grams of coffee into our portafilter. We hit our espresso. How fast does it come out? It comes out in between 25 and 30 seconds, right?
Yep.
So we're extracting all of the coffee, or 2 ounces of coffee, in 30 seconds. So what that means is when we push a lot of water through, we get a very acidic cup of coffee, right? So what we're allowing it to do is, hey, wet it just a little bit. We've started the clock, and we are going to let the clock run a little bit before we add our second pour. We're going to add more water, and so that's where the extraction process comes. So if you wanted a more traditional, stronger cup, your first pour would be the other way. It would be 80, and then your second pour would be 40. Now, I have tried both of these, and I have...
What's your favorite?
I really love, like, 30-90. So my first pour is 30 grams of milliliters of water.
Yep.
And the second is 90. And dude, it is crazy how much going from 60 to 60 is, and then 40 to 80, and then 30 to 90. Dude, it is like...
So you like a more traditional...
No, this is
well,
like
that's what it sounds
smooth.
like.
No, the first pour, the more you take off the first pour, the smoother, sweeter the cup is.
Oh, okay.
So the more So
the worse the bean, you want to basically just barely, what sound like you're saying, just barely wet the bean on that initial pour.
So if you've got, try 60-60 for your base, so you can know what it's going to kind of like traditionally taste like, what it's supposed to taste like, what they have, the profile that they have roasted it at. So start at 60-60 all the way through, and then adjust that first number. And dude, it is crazy, like how much just altering the first two pours will change the profile in your cup. I haven't talked about the last three pours, but you can also change those ratios. You can go from, because you're pouring 180 milliliters left, right? So your first two pours were 120, and your last three pours are 180. Divided by 3 would be 60, 60, 60, correct? You can change that up to do 90, 90, and it will be even, I'm not going to say weaker, but it'll be a less traditional taste. And like, dude, you change both of those up, it's crazy how much the coffee will change.
That's cool. So like I said, try Aaron's recipe, you guys, and see, to let us know what you think about it. You might love it. You might like it. You might hate it. If you do, don't tell us. But if you like it, let us know.
Please, and if you have a recipe out there, if you have something that you've tried, let me know.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's going to be the holiday times. Maybe you can do some tests when your family and friends are gathered around. You can say, hey, what do you think about this cup? And then do a different one. They might get annoyed with you, or they might like you. So it just depends. But
seriously, it is crazy. I've tried. I currently have right now at the house 5 different bag of beans, and
you are an experimenter. It sounds like, for sure.
Oh my gosh, dude, it is crazy. Like, it's a cup of coffee that it's relit my fire back into the manual brew process, because this is like.
Well, that's good considering that your espresso machine is down at work. So, I mean, manual brew is the way to go.
Dude, it really is. So, to our listeners, I'm going to challenge you, like, to try this. To our listeners, try it. Please let us know. Like, you can reach out to us on Instagram. You can leave us a comment on the interwebs, on the platforms, social media platforms, or the podcast platforms.
This is really interesting, but if you're just stepping into this, you might have some questions on the manual brew process. Well, lucky for you, I think it was episode 17.
Yeah.
With Mr. Joe Strothman. He actually went to a manual brewing class in Louisville.
Yes.
And he chatted with Aaron and talked about some really good tips and methods for manual brewing. So if this has piqued your interest in manual brewing, check out one of the previous episodes. Again, it's the holiday season, guys, so enjoy time with your friends and family. Educate them on all that you learned about coffee from the Coffee Snobs podcast. Santa, if you're listening, Chad Lingenfeld, probably a few lumps of coal in his stocking. Now, miss you, Chad. Chad was not here today, but Chad will be back with us shortly. And we've got some fun episodes coming up. So like Aaron said, reach out to us on social media, Coffee Snobs Podcast. If you get a chance, go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever. Leave us a rating and review. Help us spread the word. Aaron, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
On the Instagram at AARONBEAVER. That's Aaron Beaver. What about you, Tyler?
I am Ty Dancy, Tydancy on social media. And Chad is Chad Lingefeld. The F is silent. So for this episode of the Coffee Snobs podcast, guys, this is Aaron and Tyler. Peace out, guys.
Adios.